This bad boy can fit so many drawings. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to do a review of a tablet that I've been trying out recently. VEIKK reached out about a new model that they have, the Studio VK. The Studio VK2200 The Studio VK2200 Pro. This is by far the largest display tablet I've worked with, so there's a lot for me to get used to, but let's talk about that. So a quick breakdown of what comes with this tablet. The display tablet itself, a tablet stand that is attached to the back of the tablet, HDMI cable, USB-C to USB-C cable, USB-C to USB-C-A cable, power adapter, glove, pen with sleeve, extra nibs, and nib remover. There are multiple sets of cables because depending on what ports your computer has, you have two options, USB-C cable or HDMI plus USB-A cable. I went with the latter because my desktop does not have a USB-C port, but if you're using this with a MacBook, for example, this will be one less cable to have to use. The cables are inserted near the back middle of the tablet and stand complex structure. This is in contrast to some other tablets which may have it more towards the side of the tablet. Just letting you know in case the locations of these will affect the spacing and placement on the desk. Okay, so one thing that is a little bit confusing to me is that the quick start guide shows there should be one pen and one sleeve and a nib remover device. But my box has two pens and two sleeves and no nib remover device. I don't know if this was some packaging error, but I guess I will always welcome having extra pens. Speaking of the pen, not bad. I think I'd prefer a slightly longer pen for the counterbalance leverage, but I do have small hands so it doesn't really affect me. If you have large hands, this could be slightly on the short side, but I think it's still a good length.
Is a 6-inch pen short for you big-handed folks? Would it be uncomfortable for long-term use?
I think 6 is normal. Is that what a normal pen length is? Question mark?
Lomo.
My favorite pen is just over 6. I write with the cap on the butt to extend it. My shortest is just at 5. It's alright, but not the best for comfort. The shortest is 4 inches without the cap. I would not write with that unless it's for instant notes.
I don't use pens.
Okay, thanks.
It's a plastic pen, but it's got a sort of velvety matte texture. Shape-wise, pretty typical slim back end and widened towards the tip. It's actually very similar to the pen I have from Parbleu. In fact, let's do a quick comparison of all the tablet pens I have. My favorite ones I use are the Huion and the Parbleu ones, and this falls in a similar range, but a bit lighter in weight. It has a seesaw button, which means you can map two keys to them. I typically am not good at pressing one or the other because my thumb placement is very finicky, so I tend to map both to the same key, which is Alt, to switch to the color picker mode. The pen also does not require any charging, so actually the technology it uses makes it interchangeable with quite a few of my pens. This also comes with a pen stand, though to me this one is very, it's mid. It does its job, holds the pen, simple task. I do think this would be better if it had a rubber bottom and slightly heavier so that it's less easy to knock around or fall over. This is probably just some details that I noticed because I own other tablets with pen stands, but for the most part, if I'm putting this off on the side away from everything, it's really no big deal. Like I mentioned, the manual suggests there is a separate nib remover, but I didn't receive one. But this pen stand, like most of the other ones I have, seems to have a built-in nib remover. I don't know if it's just a QA issue with the size of the hole, but I could not get the pen nib off with it. I switched to another stand with a built-in nib remover and it came out pretty easily, so again, don't know if it's just the one I received or maybe I should be using it differently, but just an observation. I don't think it's a huge deal. You can probably get some nib remover tool really easily for really cheap if this also happens to you. I'm going to try to make the installation part really brief because this is like every other time I've had to install tablet drivers. Overall, installing was super quick and easy. They do suggest uninstalling any other tablet drivers and turning off antivirus software for the best results, though I did test out not doing that, and for me on Windows 10, I was still able to install and use the tablet without doing those prior steps. I did, however, make sure to close out any other drivers, making sure they weren't running in the background. This is because I tend to switch between tablets for different purposes, so uninstalling and reinstalling drivers is really tedious for me. In subsequent installations, I did uninstall everything else just to be on the safe side. The driver lets you configure much of the standard things that you do for a tablet. You can set your pen keys, tablet buttons, and the rotational dials. My other tablet has one dial where you can switch between zoom, brush size, and rotate canvas in the center button, and then use the dial around to go big or small. This one seems like you can configure what you want them to be, and there being 2 dials, you can configure 4 total settings. This means, for example, one dial can control brush size and canvas zoom, while another one control, I don't know, X and Y, whatever you want. The driver also has the calibration button to calibrate the pen presses to where they should land around the screen. I don't think I had that much of a parallax issue with the screen, but we could check that out a bit more later on the edges, as that's where I've generally found issues in the past. Alright, I'm going to put up some drawing footage and talk a bit about how this feels. The tablet surface has this slight matte coating on it, so it's not slippery when you draw, which is great, makes it much more natural feeling. I love having more controls on the left side of the tablet, though I did find myself reaching towards the middle of the side by habit because my previous tablet I've been using has a single dial in the center, while this one has dials on the top and bottom. After around a week, it's not really so much an issue for me anymore. I think the parallax is actually not very visible, at least with my calibrations and everything. I don't really have an issue of seeing the mouse being offset from where my pen is. Even the corners and sides, it's pretty good. It might come down to how you hold the pen and view the tablet at the extremes, but it overall looks good to me. For the display settings, there are some buttons that you can adjust the screen temperature, brightness, etc. I did notice that these settings are also accessible on the driver, so that's nice because I'm so bad at remembering which buttons to press on the tablet itself. Resolution is 1920 by 1080, same as my previous tablet, so I don't have much to comment there. It works well for my drawing purposes and for general viewing as a second monitor. I think one of my favorite things is how the stand works. To give background on where I came from, my first display tablet did not come with a stand at all. My second one, which is the previous one I was using, did include one. It was an easel type of stand where you prop the backing up to some angle and there is a ledge for the tablet to sit on. It's actually nice in that it's very light and quite portable, but I had 2 main problems with it in terms of my workflow. One, it's less secure, so there have been times if I'm pressing on the corner of a tablet, it slides off the easel edge a bit. 2, the prop-up mechanism is such that you have these bars that go into pre-made grooves, which means there's a set number of angles the tablet can be put into. So if I wanted something between 2 of those 3 settings, it's not possible. And the most vertical setting available was not vertical enough for me when I wasn't drawing and I just wanted to use the tablet as a second monitor. For this tablet, the stand mechanism is directly attached to the back of the tablet. This makes it heavy and less portable, but I don't really plan on taking a 22-inch monitor around with me. It makes my desktop setup more stable, and the stand bars have rubber grips on them to keep them in place on the table. As for adjusting the angle of the tablet, it has a piece that you can pull to release the locking mechanism in place to freely adjust the angle that you want, and then release it to lock in the current position. This is much more flexible, and I'm able to put it nearly completely vertically horizontally if I want. As far as I can tell, this does also mean you can't flip the tablet to the buttons on the right side like you can with some other tablets which offer more support for a left-hand mode. This next part I'm including in my video because I want to be open about my full experience with the tablet. Everything was working perfectly for around a week. I was getting used to everything so I could collect my thoughts for this review when suddenly, one day, I started having problems. So the problem was that suddenly, the tablet kept mapping to the wrong display. With my setup, I have my main monitor, which is display 1, and my tablet as an extension of my desktop, which is display 2. Despite the fact that the driver setting is still set to display 2, for whatever reason, my mouse kept going to display 1. This persisted even if I reinstalled the driver, unplugged and replugged all the cables, opened the driver in admin mode, and restarted the computer. No joke, I did this like 5 times at least. I didn't have any other tablet drivers installed at this point in time. I also was curious what would happen if I switched my tablet to be the main display and monitor as the secondary. The mouse ended up being on the tablet itself, which is good, but it still couldn't draw. So something was up, and I had already done all the things that seemed relevant. So I reached out to my contact at VEIKK about this issue, and there were a couple of back and forths. I sent some photos and videos and described the specs that I had and what actions I have already taken. I ended up having to message tech support for help since the team is dedicated to solving these kinds of problems. They suggested an HDMI cable issue, which is honestly a little weird to me that it would suddenly stop working despite me not touching the cables, but you know, sometimes it'd be like that. Alright, for some reason my microphone decided to cut off before I finished talking, so I'm re-recording this part, but basically by the end of it I just kept retrying a lot of the same things over and over again with restarting, checking my permissions, making sure I don't have other software installed, unplugging, replugging things, etc. And at one point it just randomly worked. And everything was good, and I think the problem is indeed kind of maybe with the HDMI cable. I don't know if it's the only problem, but I do notice that sometimes I also run into the same problem again where I'm trying to draw on the tablet but it's mapping to the other screen when I have my tablet angled too far in such a way that the HDMI cable is kind of being bent at the head a little bit. And so every time I want to draw, I have to put my tablet a little bit more parallel, or like such that the cords are not bent too much. So I think that is a note. Maybe that could be the reason. I don't know if that's just that cable has issues or just in general you don't want it to be bent too much. But yeah, that's why. And I think sometimes I feel like the driver doesn't show up all the time when I want to click on it, but it launches fine. I'm nitpicking. In summary, I quite like this tablet and I really enjoy its size, buttons, and the stand. I do have some nitpicks on some of the accessories, but overall it didn't really bother me that much, though perhaps that may be due to me having alternative options. I did have kind of a scare for that period when things weren't working and I needed troubleshooting help. But you know, everything is working smoothly again, so maybe something weird just happened. Aside from that situation, I think everything was really easy to set up and use, and I do plan to keep using this tablet for the foreseeable future simply because I enjoy the display and it fits my journal workflow. It is a display tablet, so price-wise, it's definitely more expensive than regular pen tablets. On their website, they sell it at about $470, not including shipping. This is probably a comparable price to other similarly sized tablets that are not Wacom. I think the Canvas 22 series is around $450 for the base model and $550 for the Plus version. That one doesn't have buttons, but you can pay $40 for a mini key dial accessory. For XP Pen, they have a few tablets around the 22-inch size, and those are between $450 and $600. I have not tried those tablets before, so I can't really comment on how they compare in terms of use. But this is just to say the price of the tablet is in a reasonable range. Not too expensive, not that much cheaper than similar models from competitors. With that said, thank you so much for watching my review. Hopefully, it's helpful to those of you checking out different tablets, maybe thinking of what kinds of things that might be important to you, or maybe just want to listen to me talk for 15 minutes for some insane reason. I want to thank VEIKK for sending me this tablet for this video, though all statements here are my own genuine opinions, and they had no influence on this review whatsoever. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!